ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। पूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम्। वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणम् शृण्वन् रामकथानादं को न याति परां गतिम्। यः पीबन् सततं रामचरितामृतसागरम् अतृप्ताष्टं मुनिं वन्दे प्राचेतसामकल्मषम्। यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम्। वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसि जाते दशरथ आत्मजे वेदस्प्राचेतसादाशीर् साक्षाद् रामायणात्मना। श्रीराम जय राम जय जय राम Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Shri Ramchandra Bhagwan ki jai. So Hare Krishna everybody. Hare Krishna. So today, as you all know, is Shri Ramchandra Vijayotsav. So it's the 10th day of the lunar calendar where Lord Ram slayed Ravana. So this is a very important day in the lives of those who live in the Vedic society especially. Including like it's important not just for the Hindus but also for the seculars and even for the Muslims. Like when I was in India, for example, I saw everyone would participate in this festival. So it's a very important pastime, and the seculars generally look at this festival as the victory of good over evil. But for the devotees, it means much more. So the devotees are able to understand much more about Lord Ram's pastimes. So today, for the next 45 minutes, as much as I can, we'll try to discuss the pastime of Lord Ram entering into Lanka and killing Ravana. So let's see how far we go and try my best. If you guys are still attentive, we can carry on, but we'll see how we go. So basically, if you all remember, during Ram Navami time, we were discussing Sundar Kanda. So Sundar Kanda finishes when Hanuman comes back to India. So when he comes back to meet Lord Ram, that's where Sundar Kanda finishes. And Lord Ram then embraces Hanuman and tells him that there is no other servant that is better than him. So then after that, it is explained that Yuddha Kanda starts. So as you all know, there are 7 or you may or may not know, there are 7 cantos or 7 kandas in Ramayana. So the 5th one is known as Sundar Kanda, and the next one is known as Yuddha Kanda. So Yuddha Kanda is where the war happens. This is one of the largest cantos, and basically it involves the fighting between Lord Ram and Ravana and many others. So if we read the whole canto, there is lots and lots of fighting between loads and loads of different characters, but I'll only discuss the important ones. So basically when Hanuman comes back, then at that time Vibhishana, who is the brother of Ravana, he advises Ravana that it's time that he gives Sita back to Rama, because he says that if one monkey can do so much damage in terms of burning the whole of Lanka, then imagine how much a whole army can do. So then at that point, Ravana tries to consider that possibility. But then he asks his ministers, what should I do? Should I give Sita back? So his ministers were trying to flatter him and they were trying to please him. So they tell him that actually no, the only reason Hanuman was able to burn the whole of Lanka is because we were caught off guard. We didn't have any preparations done or anything. But if we have all our preparations done, then obviously we will be able to defeat Rama as well. So in this way, all of his ministers start convincing Ravana that this is not a good idea to give Sita back. In the meantime, Vibhishana is trying to convince Ravana. He's saying that Sita should be given back, and he cites many different reasons, that it is sinful for someone to abduct someone else's wife, etc. So at that time, Indrajit, who is the son of Ravana, he gets very furious and he says that my uncle is just like a serpent in the garments. He says he's like a person whom we have fed our whole lives, but ultimately he is biting us when we need it the most. So he's saying that instead of proving the prowess of Ravana, he's saying that Ravana is ultimately a coward and an impotent guy. So he says that I can't believe that my brother or my father has been harboring such a envious brother. So Ravana becomes very receptive to this advice, and he thinks that actually my son is speaking the right thing. So he says that actually, yeah, Vibhishana is like a traitor. He says that while he has been always fed by me, he is glorifying the enemy more than he is glorifying myself. So he tells Vibhishana to get out of here. He says that you don't have to live here. So then at that point it is described that Vibhishana, along with his 4 ministers, he goes and he says to Ravana, he says that you do not heed good advice. Because you do not take good advice, my role here is nothing. He says it is time for me to go to Rama. So with his 4 ministers, he flies all across the ocean and he goes and seeks shelter at the feet of Lord Ram. Now if we discuss this episode of Vibhishan Charanagati, that itself can take like 60 minutes. So I won't discuss that today, but needless it suffices that this was a huge thing, because here was the brother of Ravana who Rama had no reason to trust, and this guy was coming and taking shelter at the feet of Lord Ram. And obviously, naturally, all the monkeys opposed this decision of Lord Ram. But Lord Ram eventually said that anyone who seeks my shelter, I shall give him protection, even if he is my enemy. So then at that point, Rama accepts Vibhishana as one of his clan members, you could say. And it's interesting to note that Rama actually performed Vibhishana's Rajya Abhishek there itself. Rajya Abhishek means that he coronated Vibhishana as the king of Lanka already. Now this was a bit inappropriate because the king of Lanka at that time was Ravana, and Ravana was still alive. But still Lord Ram coronated Vibhishana as the king. He got water from the ocean and consecrated him and said that from now on you are the king of Lanka. This goes to show that in his mind Lord Ram had already killed Ravana at this point itself. So then Lord Ram asks Vibhishana, he says that, okay, now I need to know how to get from here to Lanka. I have to take my whole army. So then at that point Vibhishana says that actually you should pray to the ocean god. So the ocean god is none other than Sagara, and Sagara's ancestor was Varuna. So he says that if you pray to Varuna, he will give you some guidance on how you can cross this massive ocean. So then at that point, it is described that Lord Ram went into meditation. He went and sat or essentially slept by the ocean. Now it's interesting, if you're praying to someone, do you go and sleep in front of that person? We don't go and sleep, we go and offer our respects. But Lord Ram at the ocean beach, you could say, he just went and he laid down like Lord Vishnu does. And he was in deep meditation, it is described. So for 3 days and 3 nights, he sat in meditation, but the ocean god did not appear. So at that point, Lord Ram became extremely angry and he told Lakshmana to bring his bow and arrow. He says that this ocean god is extremely arrogant. He thinks that he's more powerful than me, and that is why he thinks that I am a mere human being. He says, today I will show him my power. So then he takes his bow and arrow and he fires some arrows all the way into the ocean. And as he fires those arrows, the whole ocean starts bubbling because of heat. It starts becoming very hot. Then Lord Ram takes a Brahmastra. He takes the weapon of Lord Brahma and he is like, today I will dry up this whole ocean. Because if he dries up the whole ocean, then there will be no impediment. The whole army can walk all across Lanka. So he says that now I will burn up the whole ocean. So as he made this vow, and as he was about to fire this arrow, the whole clouds started trembling. There was a lot of thunder and it was raining heavily. And at that point, the ocean god came out. So Varuna came out and he was an effulgent personality. But then he fell straight at the feet of Lord Ram and he apologized. And he said that actually it is my mistake and it is my arrogance that I did not appear before you. He says that please don't show me your anger. So he says that I did not recognize that you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So please tell me what you desire. So Lord Ram said that actually I need to find out a way of how I can cross over this ocean. So at that point, Lord Ram says, so then the ocean god says, what does he say? Does anyone know? What does the ocean god say? How can you cross over stone bridge? How should you make the stone bridge? Yeah, carry the rocks, put the rocks. On the rocks, you write the name of Ram, and then you throw them in the ocean. That's what people think. But actually, no, that was not what is said. So actually, what he said was that in your army, in the army of Sugriva, there is one monkey called Neela. Neela Prabhu is there. So like that, there is one Neela. So Neela is essentially an incarnation of Vishwakarma. And he said, this Vishwakarma has incarnated just to fulfill this purpose of yours, which is to build the bridge on top of the ocean. So he says, just employ him and he will do it. So then at that point, Neela goes and he says that, yes, actually, this was the task that was given to me by my father, Vishwakarma. And then he takes the rocks and he commands, he tells all the monkeys how to place the different rocks and everything. And then in that way, they construct the entire bridge. So they construct the entire bridge in 9 days, it is described. So does anyone know how long is the war between, so how long does it take between Lord Ram finding out about Sita's whereabouts and ultimately him killing Ravana? How long is that whole episode? Any guesses? 1 year? How many of you think 1 year? 1 year? Okay. How many of you think 6 months? Okay. Well, shout out some numbers. 10 days? 10 months? Okay. Any others? Sorry? Yeah, we're betting essentially. Yeah, we'll see who's right. 30 days. Actually, yes, that is the answer. It took 30 days for Lord Ram to build the, essentially start the construction of the bridge and then ultimately go to, ultimately kill Ravana. So the whole episode of Lanka Kanda is 30 days. So, or Yuddha Kanda, sorry, is 30 days. So then after that, when the bridge is constructed in 9 days, the whole army is able to cross over. And this army is essentially, it's described that it was huge. No one had seen an army like this. So when Ravana found out that some of the monkeys and the bears, they're crossing over, he sends 2 of his spies. And those spies are known as Shuka and Sharana. So these 2 spies, they go and they try to find out about how big Lord Ram's army is. So when they go there, Vibhishana identifies them. He says that actually these 2 spies, they're disguised as monkeys, but they're actually spies. So then when the monkeys find out, they essentially catch these 2 spies and they start beating them up. They start breaking. They came in the form of like, essentially when they got caught, they reverted to their form as birds. So then the monkeys, they caught the birds and they broke all of their bones. They tore off all of their feathers. They were very violent with those. So then these, interestingly enough, Shuka and Sharana, they know that Lord Ram is very magnanimous. So they actually call out to Lord Ram for help. They say, oh Lord Ram, please protect us. Ram, please protect us. So then Lord Ram appears and he says that, now that they have again sought shelter at my feet, I have to give them protection. So he says, that's fine, you just let them go. And then Sugriva is very angry. He says, no, I won't let these people go. So then Rama says, okay, because you are angry, he says, you should give them some medical aid and then let them go. So it's interesting that anyone who speaks up has to do that service, the one that they don't like to do. So then Sugriva angrily, he medically tended to them and then he sent them back. So then when Shuka and Sharana, when they went back to Ravana and reported, like this is how much of the army there is. So they said that, like if you take hundreds, bigger than hundreds is thousands, bigger than thousands is 10,000, bigger than 10,000 is lakhs, bigger than lakhs is crores, bigger than crores is Arab, bigger than that is Kharab, etc. They're describing. And they said that 600,000 Kharabs, that is the size of the army of Lord Ram. So when Ravana heard that, he became very scared. He thought that, well, that means that my destruction is almost coming about. So because he becomes very scared, he devises a strategy. He says that he thinks to himself, he thinks that if I actually enter into battle, I might actually lose. So what he does is he goes before his minister and he asks his minister that you need to conjure or you need to make a fake head of Rama. So make an illusory head of Ram and I will take this before Sita. And so what he does is, so he makes that fake head of Lord Ram and like it's a severed head. So he takes that head before Sita and he throws it at Sita. And he says, look Sita, this is your husband Ram. Your husband Ram is already dead. I went into battle and I killed him. So then when Sita sees that illusory head of Ram, she becomes extremely distressed and she faints at that sight. Then when she wakes up, she's crying pitiably. She's saying, how come my husband died? My husband killed 14,000 Rakshasas by himself. And now he's killed by the stupid Ravana. And then she says, I cannot live. I need to commit suicide as well. And then she's running about here and there. She's crying. And then the reason Ravana did this was he was hoping that Sita would eventually give in to despair and then she would eventually covet towards Ravana. And then Ravana would be able to stop the whole war by showing to Ram that look, ultimately Sita has accepted my shelter, so there's no point in you fighting with me anymore. So this is what Ravana was planning. So then, after Ravana does this, he essentially, as this episode is being, as this episode is happening, at that time the monkeys start to break the walls of the kingdom. So then Ravana becomes very scared, and then he goes inside to consult with his ministers, like what should we do, how should we act further, etc. He's discussing that. In the meantime, Vibhishana's wife, she comes towards Sita and she says that her name is Charama. So she comes and she says to Sita that actually you should not worry about it. She says this is just a magic, this is just an illusion that Ravana has created your husband's head. And the reason he did this is so that you would eventually give in to his demands and then he could stop the war. But actually the reality is that Ravana is very much afraid of Ram and he has seen the army coming. And that is why he is deploying all of these kinds of tricks to make sure that the war never even happens in the first place. And he is very doubtful of his own abilities. So then at that point, Sita becomes a bit consoled in her heart and then she starts praying to Lord Vishnu at that point to give protection to Ram and Lakshmana. So then after this, Ravana is consulting with his own ministers. And then we see that one after the other, he dispatches so many of his generals and his ministers to enter into war. There are many, many different types of ministers. Like I'll name some, but one of them is Prahasta, one of them is Mahodara, one of them was Yupaksha, one of them was Virupaksha. There were so many different generals that he sent into war. Now the interesting thing here is that you should compare the two armies. So the Rakshasa army, so the army of the demons, was completely endowed with all different types of weapons. They were very well equipped. They had horses, they had chariots, they had very good weapons, they had very good armor also. So they were very well equipped. On the other hand, Lord Rama's army, they didn't have any weapons at all. They didn't have any armor. They did not wear anything fancy at all. All they had were their nails and rocks, trees and mountains. That's all they were using. They didn't have any sophisticated machinery or anything like that. The only 4 or 7 humans, you could say, that were there at that time were Rama, Lakshmana, Vibhishana and his 4 ministers. So these were the only 7 human beings there on Rama's side. All the others were monkeys and bears. But on the Rakshasa side, they had all different types of weapons. So all the Rakshasas had all the weapons of the demigods also. So then basically the fighting began. And this kind of fighting was not any ordinary kind of fighting. And the reason is that the rules in this fighting were very different. Because the Rakshasas gain power at night. They are more powerful at night. Whereas the monkeys and the bears, they can't really see very well at night. So this kind of fighting, it was almost like a hide and seek kind of fighting. Like the Rakshasas would try to retreat and play it very safe during the day, and they would become offensive at night. Whereas the monkeys, they were trying to be defensive at night, and they were attacking very vigorously during the day. So then it is explained that as the fighting was going on, one after the other, Ravana's ministers and all of his sons and all of his, like relatives, slowly they started dying. So then at that point, Indrajit, or the son of Ravana, whose other name was Meghanath, he decides to enter into battle. Now Indrajit was a master of illusion. So he was an expert conjurer. So he essentially had a boon from Lord Brahma that while he would perform his sacrifice, so he would do a sacrifice every day. And if he had performed that sacrifice that day, he would be undefeated in battle. So he would perform this sacrifice at a place called Nikumbhila. So he would perform, and if he performed that sacrifice, he could not be defeated that day by anyone at all. So he basically went to the altar to perform his sacrifice in the Nikumbhila cave. And essentially it's a very vivid description that he lights a fire and then he takes a few goats and he just throws them into the fire. And through that he gets his strength and then he runs out into the battlefield. So then when he saw that, that the monkeys, so this is basically he comes out at night time. He sees that all of the monkeys are tending to their injured fellow monkeys and that they're not in really a good mood to fight. So basically at that time he decides to attack. So he comes in his chariot, in his celestial chariot, which is flying over the sky. And then he comes in with his arrows, which are essentially nothing but Naga arrows. Naga arrows are serpent arrows. So he starts to fire all of these arrows at the whole army that is present there. He kills up to 60,000 monkeys with his arrows. And including the monkeys, he also shoots these arrows at Lord Ram and Lakshman. Because he says that, so many of our ministers have already died, so it is time that I try to put an end to this war. So he says that if I kill Rama and Lakshmana, then the war will stop. So he fires his arrows at Rama and Lakshmana. The specific name of the arrows were Nagapash. So he fires the Nagapasha arrows at Rama and Lakshmana. So Rama and Lakshmana become bound by those arrows and they start weeping, and it appears as if they have lost their consciousness. They become almost unconscious on the battlefield. So then when this happens, all the monkeys find out. So especially Hanuman and Jambavan, they come running and they're crying and they're lamenting, oh, what happened to Lord Ram? And as they're praying to Lord Vishnu. They're praying, oh, Lord Vishnu, please protect Lord Ram. And then immediately as they're praying, Garuda appears. So Garuda Prabhu is here as well. But just like that, Garuda appears. So Garuda appears, and as soon as Garuda appears, the Nagapasha, the serpents which bound up Lord Ram, they essentially just disappear from there. Why? Because Garuda is an eagle, and eagles eat snakes for lunch. So as soon as the Nagas saw that Garuda has come, they got scared and they left. And just by Garuda's presence, when Garuda came, he was blowing his wings, and his wings, essentially, it is explained that they carry prana within them. And just by the blowing of his wings, he gave Rama and Lakshmana the air of life. And then both of them stood back up and they became completely recovered, as if nothing had happened at all. So in the meanwhile, Indrajit had gone back and explained to Ravana that, I've killed Rama and Lakshmana. So Ravana became extremely happy and he said, yes, that's my boy. And he became so happy and he was starting to celebrate. But then within like a matter of few hours, he received the news that Rama and Lakshmana are still alive, and now they are pressing towards Lanka. They are starting to go more and more towards Lanka. So then it is described that Ravana personally, he comes out out of his palace to inspect, what is happening here. So when he is inspecting, Rama notices that, Ravana is over there. Along with Rama, it is explained that Lakshmana, Sugriva, Hanuman, all of them were also standing there. So when Sugriva sees Ravana, he becomes so angry. And then he jumps all the way up to Ravana to try and fight him. And he says, today I will kill you. And between them, there's a huge war that is happening. Like both of them are punching each other, scratching each other, biting each other's arms, etc. Like very ferociously they're fighting. So eventually Ravana was getting very tired of fighting with Sugriva. And Sugriva was just pressing on and on and on. So then Ravana immediately decided to use some magic tricks, which Rakshasas are very good at. So he started to disappear from one place and then appear at another place, and then all of these things. And then he started creating illusions of himself. And in this way, Sugriva was becoming illusioned. And Ravana was coming and punching him and biting him and, slashing him with his sword. So Sugriva was kind of losing. So then Sugriva realized that he is no match for Ravana, while Ravana is displaying his illusory prowess. So then at that point, Sugriva jumps back. When he jumps back, Rama reprimands him. He says that, how dare you jump and fight Ravana? He says the war has only just begun. If the king of the monkeys dies at the first, he said all of the monkeys will become so disheartened. He says you should not be so arrogant to go and fight Ravana himself. He says Ravana is very, very well equipped and you should not just take him very lightly or take him for granted. So he said that it's better that you stay here. So then he says to Angada, Angada is the son of Vali, he says that Angada, you need to go and convey a message to Ravana that if he hands over Sita now, I will finish the war and there will be no need to escalate this war anymore. So then Angada goes there. And then when Angada goes there, he goes and conveys this message of Ram. So then at that point, Ravana gets very angry. And then he dispatches 4 of his soldiers to go and kill Angad. Angad basically, as soon as the soldiers come to grab him, he takes all of them and he flies all the way throughout the palace. And he destroys the palace of Ravana also. And in the meanwhile, he kills 4 of those ministers of Ravana. And in this way, he comes back. Now, many people have this misconception, or there's this myth that goes on that, he puts his foot in the palace of Ravana and then he tells Ravana that, like someone should come and remove it, or I know that no one can remove my foot, and then Ravana comes to try and grab his foot. Actually, that's all mythology. That all actually did not happen. So if you read Ramayana, that whole episode is not actually there. So then after this event, Angada had basically incited fear into the heart of Ravana also. So then it is explained that the following night, Ravana himself came out with his whole army, along with all of his major generals. So basically all of them came out and they started to attack Rama's army with full force. So then at that point, Rama became extremely angry. And Rama also came out with his whole army and full force, and Rama started to fight with Ravana one-on-one. And it is explained that Ravana took Rama lightly because he thought that he's just a mere human being. So he fired some arrows, but then Rama cut down all of his arrows. And in the interim, Rama actually fired some of his very powerful arrows at Ravana, which broke his chariot, which killed his chariot driver, and which also destroyed his flag that is there on the chariot. Essentially, according to the rules of war, if your flag is destroyed from the chariot, you cannot fight on the chariot at all. You either have to retreat, you go back, or you have to fight on ground. So Rama, because he had done that, Ravana had no choice. So Ravana had to go back. So Ravana was already defeated by Rama once. But then because Rama was a dharmatma, Rama was someone who followed dharma, he said that I'm not going to kill someone who is fleeing from the battlefield. So he let him run away. So then at that point, Ravana goes back. So then Ravana is thinking, like the monkey army is extremely powerful. So I need to do something. So he says to his ministers, you need to go and wake up my brother, my younger brother, Kumbhakarna. So this Kumbhakarna had received a boon from Lord Brahma that he would have the power of universal destruction when he was awake. So his power was such that he could, if he was not stopped, he could devour the whole universe in one day. That's the power he received from Lord Brahma. But he also received a curse that he could only use his power for one day. And as soon as he would use his power for one day, he would go to sleep for 6 months. So it's not that he would stay awake for 6 months and then sleep for 6 months. No, he would stay awake for one day and then he would go to sleep for 6 months. And this demon was a very, very giant demon. It is explained, his size is given in Ramayana. It is explained that if you take a bow, so back in the day, the bows would be the same height as a human being, right? Because that's how long the bows are. So it is explained that Kumbhakarna, his height was 600 bows and his width was 100 bows. So that's how long and how wide he was. Ravana had constructed a special palace for him where he would sleep. So it was essentially very long, it was made out of ivory. So all of the ministers using elephants, horses and all different kinds of paraphernalia, they go and they try to wake up Kumbhakarna. So it's explained that as they tried to go into his palace to wake him up, the wind from his nostrils was so much that all of them were being flown away. So then they decided to form a chain. So then the elephants and all of the horses, they formed a chain and they decided to maneuver and steer all the way near his neck and near his shoulders. And they started pushing him. The elephants started pushing him. They started stamping on him, etc. But Kumbhakarna was not even slightest disturbed. Then essentially they sent in the chariots and all of the weapons and all the Rakshasas started to poke him, to wake him up. Essentially he felt some disturbance and some irritability. So he woke up. And then he looked at the ministers and he said that there must be some very great calamity that you're waking me up before I'm due. He says that Ravana will never try to wake me up. He knows that if he wakes me up before my wake up time is there, so like our alarm is at 4:30 in the morning. If you try to wake him up at 3 o'clock, you'll be dead. So that is what he was saying. He was saying that if someone tries to wake me up before my alarm clock time, then I will basically devour that person. So there must be some very great difficulty. So he says that, but actually I am extremely hungry and I am extremely thirsty. So then they provide to him the meat of 100 buffaloes. So he eats 100 buffaloes and he drinks 100 gallons of blood. And then by that, he became extremely intoxicated from the blood and he decided to get up. So then he gets up and then he's walking towards the palace of Ravana. As he's walking, the monkeys become so scared. They're like, who is this giant? Like, who is this Rakshasa that we've never seen before? Is this the god of death personified? Is this Yamaraj? They became so scared. So then Vibhishana explains that actually this is the younger brother of Ravana, whose name is Kumbhakarna. So then Kumbhakarna goes there and then he asks Ravana, why have you woken me up? So then Ravana explains that, like we're being attacked by Rama and his army and I need your help. So Kumbhakarna actually chastises Ravana. He says that actually I had warned you before. Vibhishana was very intelligent and the other ministers of yours were very intelligent to tell you that you should give Sita back to Rama. He says there is no way in the world that you're going to win this battle. So then he becomes extremely angry. Ravana becomes angry and he says that, well, the war has already started. I don't care about that anymore. I want you to go and do your magic. Go and finish off Ram. So then he says that, yeah, don't worry. He says, I know you're wrong, but that's fine. I will still support you. So he says, okay, that's fine. So then Kumbhakarna essentially wakes up and he decides to go into the battlefield. Now it is described that he had a huge mace, and when he would just put his mace on the ground just once, he would kill 8,700 monkeys with one stroke of his mace. And as he would do that, he would take the monkeys and he would start eating them. And essentially you could see so much blood and so much fat dripping down from his mouth. So then the monkeys start running away. Then basically Hanuman and Neela and Sugriva, they decide that it's time that they try to stop Kumbhakarna. So they go and they try to fight with him. Hanuman is able to check him for some time. But then Kumbhakarna basically smashes Hanuman on the head with his club, which makes Hanuman unconscious. So then Sugriva jumps in. And then Sugriva is trying to fight with Kumbhakarna, but Kumbhakarna takes Sugriva's head and smashes it on the ground, which makes him unconscious also. So then Kumbhakarna thinks that, okay, well, if I take Sugriva with me to Ravana, then Ravana will be extremely happy. So he picks up Sugriva, puts him on his shoulder and starts taking him to Ravana. So while Sugriva is going, Hanuman thinks that, okay, well, if Sugriva is taken to Ravana and Sugriva is killed, the battle will be lost. So he says that I should intervene. But then he thinks that actually Sugriva is not such a weak warrior. He will probably wake up himself. So let him wake up, and if he doesn't wake up until right at the end, then I will get into action. So as expected, Sugriva, as he was being taken inside, all of the Rakshasas were performing prayers to Kumbhakarna. They were like, oh wow, this is such a great event, like, you've killed Sugriva, etc. So they're offering him incense and all of that. Just from the power of the Archana that the Rakshasas were offering to Kumbhakarna, Sugriva gained power. And Sugriva essentially bit the ear of Kumbhakarna, slapped him and bit his finger, tore off one of his fingers, and he jumped back and came back to Rama. So then Kumbhakarna gets extremely annoyed. Now this time he takes up 2 maces, not just one. He takes up 2 maces and he's like, today I'm going to destroy all of them. So then as he is going, Lakshmana decides to fight with Kumbhakarna. So there's a small battle that happens, and Kumbhakarna is not at all affected by Lakshmana's arrows or by any of his weapons. So he tells Lakshmana that, you move to the side. I don't want to fight with you. I want to fight your elder brother Rama. Bring him in front of me. So then Lakshmana has no other option but to say that, okay, here is Rama. Go and fight with Rama. So then when Rama notices the size of Kumbhakarna, he makes a plan. He makes a strategy. He tells all of the monkeys to go and start climbing on Kumbhakarna. He says the reason is Kumbhakarna is already very intoxicated by drinking so much animal fat and by drinking so much blood. So he's almost about to pass out and he's almost about to faint. So he says that if all of the monkeys can jump on him and try to pull him down, then that will slow him down a little bit. So then basically all of the monkeys start climbing him, and Kumbhakarna cannot remove all of them because there's just way too many of them. So then as the monkeys are starting to climb on him, then Rama dispatches all of his strong arrows. And with his arrows, he's able to sever one of the arms of Kumbhakarna. And when that arm falls down, it destroys like 1 battalion of the Rakshasa army, because that's how big his arm was. So Kumbhakarna was not at all dissuaded by that. He takes his club, and as he's about to smash Rama with his club again, Lord Rama fires another arrow. You could not say, I should not say 1 arrow, because he basically fired some of the celestial weapons of Vayu. So he fired the Vayu arrows, and basically that 1 arrow divided into 10,000. And that cut off the other arm of Kumbhakarna also. Kumbhakarna was still not stopping. He was still running with his legs to come and fall onto Rama to kill him. So then Rama noticed that I have to do something again. So then Lord Rama takes his arrows and chops off his legs also. Then he's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. So now he's crawling on the ground with his mouth open so that he can swallow Rama. So you can see this is how much intoxicated he was. He didn't even feel any pain after his legs and arms were cut off. So then he is going towards Rama. Then Rama fills his mouth with thousands and thousands of arrows. And then when his mouth is filled up, then Lord Ram takes the weapon of Indra. So the weapon of Indra is known as Aindra. So he takes the Aindra weapon and then he chops off Kumbhakarna's head. And when he chops off Kumbhakarna's head, it's explained that the head goes and falls all the way at the entrance of Lanka. So the fort of Lanka is blocked by Kumbhakarna's head, and his body goes and falls into the ocean. And all of the whales and all of the alligators that were there, they all get crushed by the weight of Kumbhakarna's body itself. So then when Ravana finds out that, his brother Kumbhakarna has been killed, he becomes so sad and he faints, because Kumbhakarna was his only hope. So then he becomes so sad and he becomes so dejected, and he starts crying. And then he considers that, okay, it's time maybe I give Sita back to Rama. So then it is there explained that at that time Indrajit comes, Meghanath comes again, and he says to his father, don't worry, I have performed my sacrifice again today, and today I will go and kill Lord Ram again. So then he goes out into the battlefield, and now this time he had his Brahma weapons. So these are known as the Brahmastras. So he took his Brahmastras and he started to destroy the whole monkey army at night. Now as he is destroying the whole monkey army, Rama and Lakshmana see that he has obviously created some kind of illusion. He's flying in the sky and he cannot be seen. So then at that point, Rama and Lakshmana, they decide to fake that they are dead. So they play on the ground as if they're dead. So then when Indrajit sees that, Lord Ram and Lakshmana, they're not moving at all. So at that point, he becomes very happy, and then he decides to go back. And then he tells his father that, I've killed Rama and Lakshmana. I mean, one thing you can learn from this is if you're going to do a task, do it properly. Don't half-heartedly do it. He goes, does something, and then goes and tells his father, I've done something that, I've killed Rama and Lakshmana. But then actually he hasn't even touched them, he doesn't stop to check or anything like that. So he obviously didn't care too much. He was too proud and he was too arrogant of his own abilities. So then when they notice that, all the monkeys, when they notice that Rama and Lakshmana are also affected by the Brahmastra weapons of Indrajit, Hanuman and Jambavan, they come and they're crying and they're so desperate. They're trying to find out, what should we do? What should we do? Have we lost the battle already? So then at that point, Jambavan says to Hanuman, he says that actually, if you go to the Himalayas, there is one mountain known as Mount Rishabha. Yeah, Rishabha, obviously. He says that this Mount Rishabha is right next to Kailash mountain. He says over there are 4 herbs that you need to find. What are those 4 herbs? He says one of them is Mrita Sanjeevani, one of them is Vishalya Karani, one of them is Suvarna Karani, and the last one is Sandhini. He says, find these 4 herbs and bring them. And if you bring these herbs, we can heal Rama, Lakshmana and the whole army. So then Hanuman, so what do you think? Do you think Hanuman knows what these herbs are or not? How many of you say that he knows what these herbs are? How many of you say he doesn't know what these herbs are? Doesn't know. Okay. I think most of you think Hanuman doesn't know what these herbs are. But actually Hanuman knew what these herbs are, because Hanuman was a very great Vedic scholar. So Hanuman knew what these herbs are, and he goes to Mount Rishabha. He goes to the exact place where these herbs are found. And he's looking for those herbs, but he could not find the herbs. The reason is that these herbs are actually sent by Lord Brahma. So these herbs are not ordinary herbs, like you can't find them now. These herbs were very special, and they were sent by Brahma, and they were sentient living beings. They were living beings. And when they saw that Hanuman in a very giant form was coming, they became scared and they went into hiding. So that is the reason why Hanuman could not find them. So Hanuman knew what they actually were, but he couldn't find them. So then he decided that, okay, well, because these herbs have gone into hiding, he says it's best that I break off the top portion of this mountain of Rishabha, and then he takes this mountain all the way to Lanka, so that the physicians can heal Rama and Lakshmana. So then when the mountain is brought back, then he goes and Jambavan goes in, he takes all of the herbs and he heals Rama and Lakshmana back to life, and also all of the other monkeys and bears who had lost their lives, all of them come back to life. Then Jambavan orders Hanuman to go and put this mountain back. So then Hanuman makes another jump to take this mountain back, and he puts the mountain back and basically returns. So now at this point, Rama and Lakshmana, they're thinking that, this is getting too much. Like this fighting is not going to stop. So then at this point, Ravana sends Kumbhakarna's two sons, Kumbha and Nikumbha, to go and fight. So then these Kumbha and Nikumbha are also very great warriors. They're also like huge, giant-sized warriors. But they're basically killed by Sugriva and Hanuman. They slaughter both of those sons also. So then Indrajit comes back again for the third time. And then he says that, okay, well, I have to do something. So what he does this time is he goes to the forest and he does his prayers. So he goes to the Nikumbila grove, he does his prayers. And this time what he does is he does something interesting. So what he does is he creates a Maya Sita. He creates an illusory form of Sita. And he puts this form of Sita on his chariot. And he brings this form of Sita all the way in front of Lord Ram and all of the other monkeys. And he shows them, look, here is Sita. He shows it to everyone. So then Rama, Lakshmana, everyone is just standing there looking at Sita. And this Sita is screaming, oh Indrajit, leave me, let me go, etc., etc. And then Indrajit tells to Rama, he says, look, this is that same Sita that you're fighting this war for. He says, look at what I'm going to do to her. So he takes out his sword and he slashes that Sita's chest completely. And that Sita falls down on the ground. So then when Rama and Lakshmana, they see this, they also fall to the ground. They're like, oh no, Sita is dead, what are we going to do, etc. And then Indrajit is laughing and he goes all the way back. You know, like he doesn't do anything else. He just does his magic trick and then he goes back. So then when Rama and Lakshmana, they're fallen down on the ground, then Vibhishana comes and he explains to Rama and Lakshmana that actually this is just a trick that has been done by Indrajit. So the real Sita is not dead. So he says, what you should do though, is because Indrajit has this boon from Lord Brahma, that if he performs his sacrifice to Nikumbila Devi, that he is going to be invincible in battle, what you should do is you should interrupt his prayer. You should interrupt his sacrifice that he is going to perform. So then Lord Ram says, okay, that should be done. So then he dispatches Vibhishana and Lakshmana. He says, both of you go and you can defeat Indrajit the next day. So then the next day comes and Indrajit is performing that same sacrifice to Nikumbila. And his sacrifice basically is interrupted by Lakshmana. And when the sacrifice is interrupted, he becomes so angry and so furious. And when he sees around, he sees that his uncle Vibhishana is there. So he insults his uncle. He says that, you know, you are a traitor. How dare you come and interrupt my sacrifice, etc. My father treated you like his younger brother, and look at you, you're the one helping Rama destroy our whole army. You don't care about our race, etc., etc. He's insulting his uncle like anything. And then again, Vibhishana also tells him, he says, you keep your mouth shut. He says, you are extremely proud and extremely arrogant. Ravana was committing a very sinful act. You know this, but still you did not try to stop him, etc., etc. So there's a huge exchange of words between both of them. And basically, it's explained that at that point he takes his, Indrajit takes his arrows and he starts firing those arrows at Vibhishana. So when Lakshmana sees that Vibhishana is not a very good warrior, we know that because he did not receive any benediction to fight. So then when Lakshmana sees that Vibhishana is being overpowered, so then Lakshmana comes in and he starts fighting with arrows. So the fight continues for 3 days and 3 nights. Then Lakshmana basically, so because Indrajit has a chariot and a chariot driver, Lakshmana did not have one. So the chariot and the chariot driver that Lakshmana had was none other than Hanuman. So Hanuman became the chariot of Lakshmana. So then basically Hanuman and Lakshmana fought with Indrajit, and eventually Lakshmana also used the Aindra weapon, or the weapon of Indra, to cut Indrajit's head, sever that. Now the ironic thing here is that Indrajit's name means one who had won over Indra. That's what his name means. But when Lakshmana was holding the weapon of Indra, he was able to kill that same Indrajit, who had previously won over Indra. So that shows that Lakshmana was way more powerful. So then when Ravana found out that, his son has also died, now he becomes extremely upset. Now Ravana has lost all of his relatives. All of his relatives are dead and all of his ministers are dead. There's only one uncle of his, Malyavan, who is alive. All of the others are dead. So he's discussing with his uncle, what should we do? So then Malyavan says that now don't be a coward. He says, for you, everyone has laid down their life. So he says, now if you run away from the battlefield, or now if you give Sita back, he says, you will not get any glory. So he says, it's better for you now to go and fight with Rama. So then he gets on his chariot, and his chariot is basically driven by donkeys. So he gets on his chariot and he puts on his armor, royal armor, he takes his sword, he takes out his 10 heads, and then he comes out into the battlefield. Now when the demigods see this scene, they become extremely upset because they are scared. They say that this fight is not fair. They say that, well, while Ravana has a chariot and he has an excellent chariot driver, Rama is barefoot, he doesn't have a chariot or a chariot driver. So then at that point, Indra sends his own chariot and he sends his own chariot driver. So it's explained that the chariot was impenetrable. Like that chariot, no one could destroy. Even Lord Brahma's weapon could not destroy that chariot. The horses, it had 1,000 horses. And those horses were of bright green color, it is explained. So those horses came, and Indra sent his own personal charioteer, whose name was Matali. So he sends his own personal charioteer with the chariot, and he says, you go and you help Lord Ram fight the battle against Ravana. So then Lord Ram mounts this chariot sent by Indra, and then the fighting continues. So as Lord Rama is fighting with Ravana, the fight is pretty equal. It's going on for a long time. But Lord Ram eventually starts to outpower Ravana. So then basically what Lord Ram does is he destroys Ravana's chariot pole again, at which the chariot driver of Ravana, he retreats and he takes Ravana out of the battlefield. So Ravana becomes extremely angry and he tells his chariot driver that, I was just getting into the war. Why did you take me out? He says, Rama was going to kill you. It's better that you restore some of your energy and then we'll go and attack Ram again. So then he restores some of his energy, he takes all of his weapons, and then he comes back into the battlefield. So the battle between Lord Ram and Ravana goes on for 3 days and 3 nights also. Very intense battle that goes on between both of them. Eventually, Lord Rama starts to outpower Ravana. He starts to cut his arms, but then he notices that his arms start to regrow. He cuts his heads, and then he notices that his heads start regrowing as well. So then at this point, Rama is a bit perplexed. He's thinking, what should I do? So then at that point, the chariot driver of Rama, not Vibhishana, the chariot driver of Rama, whose name was Matali, he tells Lord Ram, he says that actually, have you forgotten that you have the Brahmastra weapon? He says you should take this Brahmastra weapon and fire this at Ravana. And basically this will be the end of Ravana. So then there's a huge, if you read Valmiki Ramayana, there's a huge description about how the Brahmastra weapon was made. Like the feathers so it's like an arrow. And the shaft is made out of ether. The tip is made out of the sun and the moon. The piercing bit that is there within the arrow is made out of fire. Then the feathers at the back, they are made out of Garuda's wings. Garuda's feathers. And the force that propels it comes from Vayu. There's a huge description of how powerful this weapon was. And then Lord Ram eventually takes this Brahmastra weapon, puts it on his Sharanga bow, and he fires it at Ravana. And as he fires this weapon, Ravana's head is chopped off, and he basically dies and falls down on the ground. So this marks the victory of Lord Ram over Ravana. Now when this happened, all of the monkeys, they start to rejoice. And all of the Rakshasas, they were in despair and they start running here and there, because they're afraid that they're going to die. All of the Rakshasa ladies, they come and they try to offer respects to their departed husbands, and they start lamenting for Ravana also. So then at that point, it is described that Lord Ram says that he asks Vibhishana to do the final rites of Ravana. But Vibhishana outright refuses. He says that my brother was a very sinful man, so I don't want to perform the final rites of such a sinful man. So then Rama says that actually with death, all animosity should finish. So he said, you should perform the final rites of your brother, even though he was a sinful man. So then he performs the final rites of his brother. And then Lord Ram coronates him as the king again. So for the second time, he's coronated as the king. Now the other task that was left was to find out the whereabouts of Sita. So then Hanuman, because Hanuman knows where Sita is, he goes and conveys the message to Sita that Lord Ram has won the battle against Ravana. So Sita is extremely joyous and she's extremely excited and she wants to go and meet Rama straight away. So, but then Hanuman says that actually you still have to wait. I will go and convey your message to Rama, and then we will sort out all of the logistics. So then Hanuman goes and conveys to Ram that, Sita is safe and sound and she is eager to meet you. So as soon as Lord Ram finds that out, he becomes extremely grave and he becomes extremely serious. And he bows his head down to the ground and there are tears falling from his eyes because he knows what must be done. So then he says to Vibhishana, Vibhishana, you go and convey the message to Sita that she needs to take a bath, put on new clothes and put on jewelry and then bring her in to the battlefield in front of everyone. And then I will speak to her. So Vibhishana conveys this message and Sita is a bit annoyed at this message because she is so eager to meet Ram, and here Ram is telling her to dress up and do all of these things. But nonetheless, she abides by the order of Ram. So she changes her clothes and everything, changes the jewelry and everything, and then she comes. So as she is coming on the palanquin, there are millions and millions of monkeys that are out there that are jumping and they're trying to get a glimpse of Sita. And Sita was trying to cover her head because she didn't want to show her head to everyone. But then Vibhishana was trying to push all of the monkeys away, like, get out of here, let Sita come, let Sita come. And then suddenly there's a very loud voice of Lord Ram. Lord Ram yells at Vibhishana and tells him that don't interrupt the monkeys. He says the monkeys have every right to see Sita. He says, put the palanquin down, ask Sita to walk all the way amidst all of the monkeys. He says, these monkeys have fought the war for Sita, so they deserve to see Sita also. So everyone was a bit shocked because they had not seen Rama in this state before. So Sita was also shocked because she had only heard sweet words from her husband. She had never heard harsh words from him. So then, as Sita was walking by, all the monkeys were extremely ecstatic and they were so happy to see Sita, that this is whom we were fighting the war for. So then when Sita appears in front of Lord Ram says that, oh Janaka Sutta, he says that, oh you daughter of Janaka, he says, I fought this war so that I could replenish my honor, because when Ravana had stolen you from me, basically he had insulted me by showing me that I am less powerful. So by killing Ravana, I have shown the whole world that I am more powerful than Ravana. He says, as for you, he says, because you were abducted by a man and you have lived in another man's house for 1 year, he says that I cannot accept you. He says, there is Lakshmana, there is Bharata, there is Shatrughna, there are many other kings. He says, go to any one of them you like. You can choose any one of them. They will gladly accept you as their wife. As for me, I cannot accept someone who has already lived in someone else's house. So then Sita becomes extremely distressed at this and she blasts Ram. She says that, how dare you question my character like this? She says that you know that I am always chaste to you and my mind would never go towards any other man. She says that, is this what you learned from your guru? That this is how you should treat a woman? Is this what you learned from Dashratha, your father? She says that, oh Rama, you should consider the circumstances in which you were born and the circumstances under which I was born. She says that you were born from an ordinary woman, whereas I was born from the ground. I was not born from an ordinary woman. I was born straight out of the sacrificial altar. She says that my birth is much more pure than yours and yet you questioned my character. She says, I cannot tolerate any of these harsh words that you have spoken to me. So she says that if I am pure, I will enter into this fire and I will give up my life, she says. And this fire will consume me. So then Lakshmana at that point is getting extremely distressed. So then Lord Ram tells Lakshmana, he says, yes Lakshmana, you heard your sister-in-law. She wants to build a fire. She wants to build a fire and she wants to jump into that fire. Go and bring some wood for her so that she can make fire and she can jump into that. Now Lakshmana was extremely angry. His face was red, his eyes were red, his limbs were trembling, but he couldn't do anything because he had to follow the orders of his brother. So then he goes and he builds a fire altar. And as he builds basically a fire, Sita walks into that fire and it appears to the entire world that she gives up her life. And Lord Ram is just standing there as if unaffected. So then when this happens, all of the demigods, they appear in front of Lord Ram and they're offering respects to him and they're falling down at his feet. Lord Brahma and Lord Indra, everyone comes and they're saying, oh Lord, what are you doing? They're like, we cannot understand this transcendental activity of yours. They said that in your previous incarnation, he said, you were the one who incarnated as Lord Varaha. And as Varaha, you were the one who saved Mother Earth. He says, this is Sita is that same Mother Earth who has come, and you are that same Lord Varaha who was there in the previous age. If in a previous age you came to protect her, why are you abandoning her now? He says, Lord Brahma says, I cannot understand this transcendental activity of yours. And he says that please stop bewildering us at this point. So then Lord Rama says that actually I have to prove to the whole world that Sita is pure. So he says, if Sita is pure, she will emerge from this fire. So then as he makes this statement, Sita walks in with Lord Agni. So Agni is the Lord of fire. So then Sita re-emerges from that fire. And then Lord Ram says that this whole activity that I performed, he says it gives immense pain to my heart. Because he says, in my heart I know that Sita is pure and she would never ever think about any other man. But he says that if I had not performed this pastime of Sita entering into the fire and coming out of this, he said the whole world would question Sita's character. So he says, this is the reason that I'm performing this pastime. So after this pastime is performed, all the demigods, they shower Lord Ram with thousands and thousands of flowers and flower petals. Now the interesting thing here is that one of the other demigods that was present there was Lord Shiva. Now what does Lord Shiva do? Lord Shiva comes, he offers obeisances to Lord Ram, and he comes and embraces Lord Ram. What does he say? He says that, oh Lord Ram, Ravana was terrifying the whole universe with his boons that he had received from me and from Brahma. So he says that I am very glad that you put an end to him. The reason I decided to mention this separately is many people have a misconception that Lord Ram, after killing Ravana, he went and he prayed to Shiva that, oh, I've killed a Brahmana, etc. So I want to repent for my sins. But actually what we see in the Ramayana is exactly the opposite. So Shiva himself comes and he thanks Lord Ram for killing Ravana. So then Lord Ram becomes extremely happy and he says that, yes, I will take Sita with me. And then they climb on top of the Pushpaka chariot, and then all of the monkeys and including Vibhishana, they get on and they decide to make their way back to Ayodhya. So this is the pastime of Lord Ram killing Ravana. Shri Ramchandra Bhagwan ki jai. So we've gone a little bit over time, and all I've done is just recite the story. I didn't even give you any valuable lessons that were meant to be taken from here. So if you can just give me 2 minutes, I'll give you 2 lessons that you can take from here. So one of the lessons is that why did Lord Ram decide to engage in this whole battle? Like before the battle started, Lord Ram says that with the tip of my finger, I can kill Ravana and his entire army. So why did he have to go through all of this pain? And why did he have to, get all of the monkeys to engage in such a huge fight when Lord Ram could have done everything himself? The answer here is that the monkeys were extremely enthusiastic to serve Lord Ram. And the whole war was actually enacted so that the monkeys could actually have an opportunity to serve the Lord. So one thing we should understand is that the Lord does not really require our service, but we require service. We require to give service to the Lord for our own purification, and because that is our constitutional position, to serve the Lord. So one of the things to understand here is that all of the monkeys were engaged in service by the Supreme Lord. So that is one of the major lessons that we should take from here. The second lesson that we should take from, or the second lesson that you can try to take from here is that you should try to understand how to take shelter of the Lord. So at the very beginning, I recited the pastime of how Lord Ram was trying to take shelter of the ocean god. Now, was this surrender, was this shelter taking successful or unsuccessful? What do you think? When Lord Ram tried to take shelter of the ocean god did not appear for 3 days. Then Lord Ram had to take out his bow and arrow, and then he threatened to kill the ocean god, saying that, I will destroy you completely. Then the ocean lord appeared and he fell at the feet of Lord Ram. So what do we understand from this? There are few things we can understand from this. Firstly, that demigods or the Devi Devtas are not worth taking shelter of. That's what the Acharyas say. They say there is no point taking shelter of the demigods because they cannot protect you. They cannot fulfill your desires. On the other hand, the other thing we should learn is how to offer shelter to someone or how to offer surrender to someone. How did Lord Ram seek shelter at the feet of the ocean god? Was he praying? He was not praying. He was laying down. So if you really want to take shelter of someone, you need to have the proper attitude in which you want to take shelter of that particular person. So Lord Ram, through his own activities, he was teaching us that if we want to take shelter of someone, we need to act in the appropriate way also. So Lord Ram, in his mind, when he was seeking shelter at the feet of the ocean god, he was not at all bothered whether or not the ocean god would accept his surrender or not. In his mind, he was totally like, he didn't care in terms of whether the ocean god would accept it or not. Whereas, when the devotee offers shelter to the Lord, or when the devotee is offering Sharanagati to the Lord, the devotee offers Sharanagati with the mentality of, oh Lord, please protect me. Rakshishyati iti vishvaso. He has this mentality that only the Lord can protect me, and he is completely relying on the favor of the Lord. So if we want to take shelter at the feet of the Lord, that is the attitude that we need to have. That you should not think, oh, okay, if Krishna decides to protect me, that's okay. If he doesn't decide to protect me, that's fine. I've got my own ways. No, that's not the mentality. The mentality is that when the devotee falls at the feet of the Lord, he thinks that, okay, I have no other shelter except for the Lord. And the Lord is my only shelter. And if the Lord doesn't protect me, then there is no point in me being protected. I'm not going to go to anyone else. I'm not going to use my own power. So this is something that, this is a second lesson that we can take away from these pastimes. Obviously, I've condensed the whole Yuddha Kanda into like 1 hour, 15 minutes. Generally, it takes about 3 to 4 days to cover the whole of Yuddha Kanda. But anyways, we will stop there. If anyone has any question or anything you'd like to comment on or anything you'd like to clarify, we can do that now. Yes, bro? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, we do have, so if you are interested in reading Ramayana, especially on this very auspicious day, we have Ramayana in English, in Hindi, in Telugu, and in Tamil. So it's only $20. Prabhu, do we have that book here? Or I can't see it. Yeah, if you can bring and show. So as you all know that this is Vijay Dashami, and then in few days we will be celebrating Diwali also. And on Diwali, we should be reading about Lord Ram and his pastimes. And actually, that is the best way to please Lord Ram, by reading Ramayana and by distributing Ramayana to others. And that is the best gift you can give to anyone. And the reason is, Yatra Yatra Raghunath Kirtanam, Tatra Tatra Kritamastakāñjalim, Vashpavari Paripurna Lochanam, Marutim Namata Rakshasantakam. Which means that whenever and wherever the pastimes of Lord Ram are being discussed, over there, Hanuman is personally present. So if you would like Hanuman to come to your house, you need to recite the pastimes of Lord Ram. And here are some of those books. So, oh yeah, these are all in different languages. So this is in Tamil. If anyone speaks Tamil, you can take this one. Then we have one in Telugu also. And then we have these in English here. And then we have this in Hindi. I think, oh, Hindi, and we have Gujarati also actually. So we have all 5 languages. So there's no excuse. If you don't have it, please take one and yeah, make your Diwali successful. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we will stand up for Aarti.